Hello everyone, you're watching Global Leaders Network WINTV. I'm your host, Yesoe. There are many leaders globally in many sectors such as government, non-for-profit organization, business, hospital, education, and etc. Global Leaders Network invite these types of leaders and share their wonderful stories. Today, I invited Julie Berkowitz from Will County, your commissioner, and also Amy Doty, and you're the nurse manager of the Pregnancy Resource Center, Will County. How are you today?
Fine,
Doing
thank
good.
you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for
You're
having
welcome.
us.
I just have to take a look at this because you guys have such a long title. You know.
A lot of syllables.
Right. Would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Amy Doty, and I am currently the nurse manager of the Pregnancy Resource Center of Will County, which is located in Joliet. I have been a registered nurse now for over 25 years. On a personal level, I have 11 children I'm currently claiming. I have 4 biological, 3 adopted, 2 guardianship, and 2 foster. So I'm also a foster parent as well. In my career as a nurse over the last 25 years, I've spent about half of that time working specifically with women in the mental health realm, after delivery in the hospital, and then for the last 8 years at the Pregnancy Center working with women in the community who are pregnant or potentially pregnant. So yes, and I think I found my niche. I love working with women and women's health. So, so that is kind of me in a nutshell.
I see. And what about you, Julie?
And my name is Julie Berkowitz. I'm a county board commissioner in Will County. And thank you for inviting me here today. I'm very passionate about pro-life, supporting life, and the women and the young men who find themselves in a new stage in their life with possibly something that was not expected. But I am very excited to be able to support organizations like the Pregnancy Resource Center and Waterleaf and Aurora. I am, my husband Walter and I have 3 sons, and just looking at everything that life has given us through our children and our family, it just reinforces my desire to support organizations like these, and also to live those standards in my life.
So let's talk about a heavy issue.
Real heavy issue.
Yeah, we'll have issue.
Yeah.
What is Reproductive Health Act?
Well, when our current governor was elected, he wanted to expand our abortion services in our state, and that act does that. It basically allows you a woman to decide to be able to terminate their baby up to birth. And it also expands coverage to government employees and Medicaid coverage. And that has just opened up floodgates for women from all over the country, surrounding states, to come to Illinois. We know that there's a rise in the pro-life movement, and we see other states adopting legislation to try to reverse that trend. And as a result, many women are coming to Illinois. And because of this act, it is the costs are rising, the increases, it's increasingly, the numbers are increasing for abortion. And there's a cost to human life and a cost on the taxpayer as well.
Oh, taxpayers' money. Wow. How much is abortion usually?
Well, at our clinic, we don't provide or refer for it, so I don't really have firsthand information, but it can be hundreds to thousands of dollars, just depending on the stage that the pregnancy is in, and if there's any, mitigating factors around that. So yeah, from a taxpayer standpoint, it is concerning that, as a taxpayer, we're now funding that based on current legislation. So, you know, beyond that, you know, from my perspective as a woman, as a mother, as a nurse, I have great concern with just the safety issue. You know, I don't proclaim to be some expert on the Reproductive Act, but some of the big changes that I'm aware of are very concerning. One of them being, you know, as a mom, thinking about the minor, you know, under 18 who is getting, you know, abortion services. You know, my understanding is at this point they don't have to have any sort of parent,
That is correct.
any kind of parent involvement or consent. And that, as a parent, is frightening that my 13-year-old can go and obtain an abortion without my knowledge or permission or consent. You know, I think specifically of my my situation. I am a foster parent. I've got children who have been through lots of trauma, who have even, like, I have one who's very medically complex. You know, she's got end-stage renal disease. There are medications that her body simply cannot process, but yet, under the current law, she could go get an abortion without any input. She doesn't have a full knowledge of her medical condition to where she can, like, you know, consent to that procedure and understand the full ramifications that can bring to her. And so that, you know, as a mother and a woman and a nurse is very, very alarming, you know. My understanding is there's also, you know, going to be less in the way of regulations as far as clinics go. There's going to be less in the way of reporting, even with, you know, adverse outcomes. And so, you know, where is the accountability there? You know, they're making these changes in the name of choice and of allowing access, but at what cost, you know?
And according to this, all of the abortions that are performed are to be reported. However, you cannot copy or review any of that data. So I believe in transparency, and you can't, there's no way that we can understand, you know, the repercussions of this. This is being pushed by Planned Parenthood, and instead of giving these young adults or young minors the information that they need to make a decision and the time to think about the stage they may be in, or the changes coming in their life if they find that they're pregnant, or if they find that you know, their girlfriend is pregnant. Instead of allowing that to happen, we have a drive to push them to a Planned Parenthood clinic and abort their babies. And the parents have no ability to actually understand what's going on as well. And as a parent, I don't want anyone else parenting my children. I wanted to be that parent. I wanted to instill the values, the family values. I wanted to teach them how to make decisions right from wrong. They are taking that ability away. Thinking or knowing that my son, if I had a daughter, my daughter could go to a complete stranger and this person could impact them for the rest of their lives, and sometimes in a very tragic way. That, to me, that is a very scary slope.
Yeah, right. But when you think about Planned Parenthood and Reproductive Health Act, the terms sound really nice, you know?
And that's, I like to say our language has been hijacked, okay? Reproductive, pro-choice. Pro-choice indicates you have a choice.
Women have choice to
So
determine.
from Planned Parenthood's perspective, or any young lady who says I'm pro-choice, they're saying, if I become pregnant, I'm pro-choice, I can have an abortion. But it's actually pro-abortion because your choices are made in most cases prior to becoming pregnant. And everybody acknowledges that there are situations that are tragic, beyond a person's control, and nobody says that they should not have the ability, if they're the victim of a rape or incest, to be able to abort their baby. That conversation has never been had. Everybody agrees those are tragic situations. But when we take these two words, pro-choice, all of a sudden we've been teaching girls that they have the choice to abort a baby. We're not talking about the fact that the baby is actually a human life. And that's where our language is misleading our youth and most of the women who say that they're pro-choice. Because if they are pro-choice, then why do so many women who experience, for example, miscarriage, why do they mourn? Why does a woman mourn when she has a miscarriage? She mourns because she knows she's lost that baby.
And I would even take it a step further, you know, from my perspective. I recognize that everyone does have choice. Again, it's a bit of semantics, you know. When I'm meeting with someone who's thinking about what they want to do in regards to their pregnancy decision, I fully recognize this choice is theirs to make. My biggest passion as a woman, as a nurse, is that she has a fully informed platform to be able to make that choice. And I'm just not confident that is always happening. At least that's the feedback that clients, and I've met with thousands of women over the last 8 years in Will County, and I'm not confident that that is happening. You know, many times, you know, I've met with women who are post-abortive, meaning they've had an abortion experience in the past, which is very common, by the way. You know, statistics will tell us something like 25% or more women will have at least one abortion experience in their lifetime. And so there are many women walking amongst us that maybe perhaps are having some struggles, but, you know, societal pressures or the message out there is this is an empowering experience for women, you know, and they're thinking, what's wrong with me that I'm not feeling empowered by this, you know? And so, you know, at the center, the pregnancy center, you know, there's more than 3,000 centers nationwide. Our particular organization is located here in Illinois and Indiana. There's 12 of us. But, you know, that is our greatest passion, is just making sure that we're able to provide a space for her to be able to have a fully informed discussion of what her options are. Exactly. You know, if she's going to carry and parent, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what resources are available in our community. Let's tell you about programs we have that can support you in that. If she's going to carry and make an adoption plan, let us walk with you in that. Let us get you some resources. Let's educate you on how that process can look. If she's going to abort, we have that discussion too. Although we don't personally provide abortions or refer out for them, we definitely have many, you know, daily conversations about what abortion procedures are, because there are different types. Sometimes women are not even aware of the different types. You know, there's the chemical or the medical or the abortion pill, you may have heard it called, that's available up and through 10 weeks. There's the surgical that's available throughout the pregnancy. Sometimes they have no idea of that. Sometimes, given their situation, sometimes they have no idea how pregnancy even works or their own anatomy. And so to be able to speak into that so they kind of know how things work, to be able to give them a snapshot of where their pregnancy currently is, you know, just to have run a pregnancy test to see if that's positive, to offer a limited obstetrical ultrasound to see if the pregnancy is even viable. You know, these are all pieces that are super important for her to have. And so when we do things like, you know, offer abortion pills online or, you know, not have an ultrasound, like that should be expected, but yet that's not happening. People are ordering abortion pills online and you have no idea what you're getting. There's no regulation there. You know, the education piece of it, you know, is hit or miss. We don't know if they're going to get everything they need to know and whether it's even, you know, contraindicated in their specific circumstances. A guy could buy it and slip it in his, you know, his pregnant girlfriend's drink. I mean, there's so many things that can happen that yeah, it's very, very frightening times when we talk about this.
As women, we want women to be empowered, and we want women to understand and be able to make good choices and to be able to live their lives understanding the impact of the decisions that we make today. And sometimes when a woman is struggling from an experience like abortion, they need help. And Waterleaf and the Pregnancy Resource Center in Joliet, they offer those services. And women and
Men,
you
too.
even have men come in
I had a man
that
in
are
his 70s come in
devastated.
last week.
Exactly.
Yeah, from 40 years ago. I mean, he is still struggling to this day, and those are the kinds
Right.
of things that oftentimes.
And I heard that after they get abortion, they feel guilty. And sometimes it's really dangerous to mother too, right?
For sure. for
Well,
sure.
I would, as a parent, if I were to find out that my daughter at some point in time had had an abortion and gone through it alone, that would devastate me. And from a parent perspective, how can we take their rights away? Why should we take away the rights of the parent? That should never happen. And
Right.
that's one of the biggest risks we're running into. We don't need the government to raise our children.
And even just a little bit more on what you were talking about with the mental health piece of it, I think there are people who don't want to admit that. My experience, my interaction with women, again, I've been doing this, having these conversations for 8 years now, and never once has one woman thrown her fist up in the air and said, "That was the best thing I ever did."
Right.
It's always, there's always some anguish that comes with that most of the time, in my experience with the patients that I've talked to about. So that's the piece. I had a recent girl who had aborted, and she was afterwards, because she felt pressured, and she wanted to make her parents happy and her boyfriend happy, and she ended up, a week later on the psych ward, suicidal, trying to kill herself because that was not what she wanted. So that's the part that just really gets me, is this needs to be about empowering her, so she can make the best decision of what's best for her, and not hearing anything else that's going on around her, but really having an understanding. And I don't have any motive other than that, just to make sure that she can make a decision that she, and he too, because he's affected as well, can live with,
Right.
That's what I'm about.
And also, we are really concerned about the baby after born, Nobody gonna take care of them, and the mother doesn't know how to take care of the child. So we want to help that out, and that's why the women have right to abort babies, because they are not sure they can raise the children really well now.
And who does that hit the hardest? The Black community. They in New York, they aborted more babies than were born, and it's devastating their community. And they're more likely to abort than to carry a baby to term. And to me, that comes down to just education. They just need to understand that there's help out there. We shouldn't be encouraging them to do that. We shouldn't have organizations that encourage them to do that. And then that leads to multiple abortions. I know several people who have had multiple abortions, and that can create complications in future births, and also lower birth rate. They've linked that to having had frequent abortions. So if you have multiple abortions and just figure later in life, okay, well now I'm ready, by using that method, you have put yourself at risk, and sometimes the baby, because they have shown lower birth weights, and that is always creates a little bit of health risk for the baby. So again, it comes down to education. What are the conversation? We need to just have a real conversation here.
Right, they have options. right? Like
They-
a foster
exactly.
care and also adoption.
Adoption is a great option. Unfortunately, in my experience anyways, it's not something that is often chosen. Usually the women I meet with many of them won't even talk about it very much, but we do present it as an option. I think, having adopted 3 children myself, and I have walked with many other women who have made adoption plans, I think it's probably one of the most selfless acts of love that I've ever experienced. I've been able to, witness, amazing friendships forged between birth parents and adoptive parents. In the birth parent situation, if it's not feasible for them to parent at that time, but they're offering this gift to an adoptive family that's, spent thousands of dollars and are just waiting for the phone call, like it really can be very incredible, and then this baby is offered this, amazing life, and it's a win-win-win across the board. It doesn't say that doesn't sometimes come with some, emotional difficult feelings, but really when we're talking about pregnancy, there's going to be emotional feelings regardless. If you parent, oh man, let me tell you. There are emotions with that. If you're going to make an adoption plan, no different. If you're going to make an abortion choice, there's going to be, emotions that come with that. So anytime we're talking about, pregnancy and birth and all these things, there's emotions tied to that. But really, again, about knowing what all your choices are and being fully prepared and empowered to make that option, that choice, is crucial, for everybody involved. So that way, all are taken care of,
In my opinion, abortion is infanticide, so killing babies. How do they kill babies?
How do they do it? Oh man.
Abortion procedures.
Abortion procedures, yeah. So there are a few different abortion procedures available. I mentioned the abortion pill. It's also called a medical abortion, a chemical abortion. And basically there are 2 different medications that are administered. Typically people would go to an abortion clinic to get that medication. The first medication that's given, it's called RU486 is the brand name for it, mifepristone. How it works, progesterone is a hormone in your body that's needed to sustain pregnancy. And so what the medication does is on a cellular level, it sneaks in and kind of takes the place of the progesterone, so the progesterone cannot bind and do its job. So then, the baby then is, at risk because then the nutrients, blood supply cannot get to the baby. So in essence, that's what causes the death of the baby. Then they're handed the second medication, which is called Cytotec. That is a medication they discovered by accident. It was actually being used for another purpose, but they discovered that it causes a woman's uterus to contract very powerfully. So they couple it with that, and they take that medication at home, usually like 48 to 72 hours later, and the woman then in essence aborts in her bathroom, on a toilet, in a shower.
And imagine having a young girl do this all alone because the parent is not a
involved.
part of this,
Right.
or somebody in the family to be there and make sure that they're safe.
Right. So that is, that particular procedure is actually on the rise. Just yesterday I was looking at some statistics, something like in the 40th percentile, that's the number of abortions being done currently in this country that are the medical, the chemical, the abortion medication. Then there's the surgical, which can be offered at any point in time throughout. The procedure itself is quite aggressive, and this is something I talk about too. It can be called a D&C, it can be called a D&E. It basically just depends on the stage that the baby is in, but it involves, it's surgical procedure, so there's anesthesia involved. If you Google anesthesia side effects, you'll get all kinds of things that can happen and go wrong with anesthesia. Many times, women who are going for a surgical abortion, sometimes, especially if they're very young, they've never had anesthesia before. So we have no idea what their response is going to be to anesthesia. So that is something that is a significant risk. The procedure itself involves a doctor manually opening a woman's cervix with instruments, prying it open with cervical dilators, going in with instrumentation that will scrape the inside of the uterus to disconnect the baby pregnancy, anything related to. There's bleeding involved. There's, the potential of introducing infection with, with that procedure itself. Because it's an outpatient situation, the woman is sent home, just hours after her procedure, she can go home and be bleeding and not realize, they tell you bleeding is normal, and she may not realize that it's excessive, and we can get into trouble real fast if some kind of perforation or damage was done in that procedure. So that is super basic as far as the procedures go, but there's definitely, it's no joke. Like, there is a lot to it.
I heard also they cut the body part of the babies.
So depending on the size of the baby, that is true. So if the opening, the cervix is very small, you know, and they go in vaginally, so that's not very big either. And so if the baby is bigger and the opening that they create in the cervix is not big enough to remove the baby whole, yes, especially like in a D&E situation where the baby's bigger, they may have to go in with instrumentation and dismember the baby and then pull the baby out piece by piece. If the baby's small enough, you know, they can use high-powered vacuum to suck all the parts into a jar, and someone goes through to make sure all the parts are out. It's a terrible thing.
What about babies, like they actually cut it and then they actually born alive?
Yeah, so you may have heard of like partial birth abortion or something along that line. When the baby's much bigger, say like in the 3rd trimester, there's a few different ways that doctors can do that. So many times doctors will actually, a day or two before the procedure, will actually inject medication through the mom's stomach into the baby's heart, digoxin. It's a cardiac med, but in high doses it will cause the baby to die. And then in essence they will have to spend a few days having the mom like be induced to deliver a dead baby. So that is one way they do it. There's the dismemberment approach that can happen. There's the partial birth, though, is very barbaric. What a doctor will do is that at the last moment they'll turn the baby upside down inside the mom, and they'll deliver everything but the baby's head, and then they will drive a sharp instrument into the back of the baby's head and actually use a high-powered vacuum to suck the brains out of the baby. So then in essence, then they deliver the head. Now the baby's born, and we now have a deceased baby at the end. So it's very, it sounds like a horror film, and it's hard to talk about, but this is what is legal in our country today.
And
so
the baby can feel everything.
the baby feels everything.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the pain receptors, I mean, those are developed in the 2nd trimester, so the baby can feel pain. So all of these types of things, you know, in the later pregnancy, the baby is feeling it all. And it's tragic. It's tragic. Yeah, it's tragic. And so this is why it's so important for, you know, for us to be able to use avenues such as this to be able to bring awareness, because these are not the conversations that are being had, you know, out there. And so people that, again, I'm all about information and education. We need to make sure that people know what they're signing up for when they ask for one of these procedures, and that way they can make a decision based on that.
And I wish that every young lady that finds herself in this situation could go to the Pregnancy Resource Center first. And then if they chose that they did not want to have the baby, they don't want to give it up for adoption, they want to abort, then go to Planned Parenthood. But we have so many young women going to Planned Parenthood first. And they're making decisions that again, can create heartache for the rest of their lives. And they have a wonderful program there, their retreats, that they have, are they 3 times a year?
A couple times
Amy?
a year for people who've had an abortion experience, just to connect with other people who have had that experience, because sometimes it can be a very lonely thing, and it's not exactly a topic that people are sitting around at Starbucks and talking about with their girlfriends. Like, lots of times there's a lot of negative feelings that come with that, shame, guilt, you know, those types of things. And so, yeah, we you know, we have a heart this big for women and men who've had an abortion experience and who are having some struggles afterwards, and would like a nice, safe, you know, confidential place to be able to talk about that. And we offer them support. And all the services we offer, like many pregnancy centers, are completely free. Our particular organization, and most pregnancy centers are typically funded by just private donations, area churches, individuals, businesses who just believe in coming alongside the women and families of our community that really could use somebody to offer them support and a listening ear.
Thank you so much for for sharing your story today.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you for having us in
Thank
the
you.
invite.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more, but the thing is that the time is
done.
yes.
Bummer.
So maybe we can invite you again next
That
time.
would be amazing. Yes,
Right.
thank you. It's been a great
Okay.
experience.
Thank you for coming
Thank
and
you.
sharing your story with us.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for watching Global Leaders Network WINTV. If you want to watch this again, you can watch this through our website and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe us. I want to see all of you next Thursday, 9 p.m. Until then, have a great week. Bye-bye, everyone.